Greetings, Internet. My name is Stephanie, and I want to propose a whole new video series for the Salt and Sass channel in which I discuss the amazing topic of solo RPGs. But before I get going, let me acknowledge the obvious. You can't see me. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to perpetuate the tradition of solo RPGers making hand videos. Mandy did talk about the importance of, having a face to relate to, and we talked about many cams, but when the moment came, I was just still a little uncomfortable with the whole YouTube thing. However, I don't want to deprive you of the opportunity to make eye contact with a television screen. So for now, why don't you associate the sound of my voice with my little llama over here? I think it's going to be my official mascot. Until such time as I'm ready to show my face, obviously. So as mentioned, I'm hoping to talk about solo RPGs on this channel. I'm frankly relatively new to the RPG scene compared to the amount of time that I spent on the board gaming scenes in general. So I've been a board gamer since about 2011, and I have been solo board gaming for much of that actually, which means that I was solo board gaming before it was cool. I know what you're thinking. Solo board gaming still ain't cool. That might be true, but it is significantly more mainstream because back in 2011, I could literally buy every single game that came out with solo roles because that's how few of them there were versus now. Also, strong argument in my favor, Mandy started doing some solo board gaming, so clearly significantly more mainstream than it used to be. So as a board gamer, I don't know, identify, if we could call it that, as a Euro gamer. Favorite game, Agricola, Obsession, and Marvel Champions. And I realized that Marvel Champion probably doesn't sound that Euro-y, and it's also a Fantasy Flight game, and it did take me some time to accept this about it. But it is quickly fantastic, so if as a solo gamer you want to try something, engine building, deck building, it's pretty cool, actually. But all this to say, I love my Euros. I really don't do thematic games, as we call them now. Back then it was more like Ameritrash or whatever. And I've tried, even Mice and Mystic. Is there something cuter than Mice and Mystic? The story is amazing, the minis are adorable, the setting is just enchanting. But dice. Those dice, man. Really can't handle roll to resolve as a gameplay mechanism. Which probably has you chuckling right now, because if someone mentions RPG, I'm pretty sure all that comes to mind is people playing pretend around a bunch of dice. So I'm going to explain how that works with my preferred RPG systems. But for now, let's just note that dice aren't, or I should say roll to resolve isn't really how I like to game. So having gotten all of that out of the way, let me talk about solo RPGs in general, because when I started my solo RPG journey, the first thing I wanted was okay, give me my categories, right? So give me the equivalent of a thematic to Euro axis. Give me the spectrum between light and heavy. Give me game mechanisms, how do I know, or are these games categorized so that I can discover what kind of genre I like and which one I want to gravitate towards. So in my research, I came across an amazing video actually from Daniel from the Dungeon Dive. I'll link in the show notes below in case you want to watch it, which I believe he called an intro to RPGs or whatever. Anyway, he did an amazing, I think it's 58-minute video on explaining what RPGs are and how they're classified. I'm not going to attempt to go in that level of depth or detail. I'm just going to give you enough information to have an idea of what I'm hoping to talk about so that you have an idea if you think you might be interested in following this series or not, in which case respect, because I'm willing to admit that sitting in a corner telling yourself stories may not be for, everybody. So, RPGs. Much like board game, they have a weight. Rules heavy versus rule light, so how complex is the rules? That's often discussed. I tend to gravitate towards more rules-light RPGs because what I like about role-playing game is mostly the role-playing, or because I'm alone, it's mostly storytelling aspect. So for example, if you look at other board games with sort of storytelling aspect, think Tales of Arabian Nights, I always found that the mechanics of Tales of Arabian Nights kind of made it awkward because it's they're not very good, the storytelling could be fun, but like, why are there these weird rules over it. So generally speaking, I prefer less rules because I find that they get in the way of the story, which is what I want when I'm playing RPGs. Again, if I want to have a structure and a puzzle to solve, then literally I'll just pull Agricola. And same thing with some RPGs that have you keep track of all of your resources, like, oh, you know, how many rations are you bringing to your dungeon, and you only have 3 torches and last for 3 hours each, and 2 turns equals 1 hour. Some people are really deep into that, but again, if I want to feed my people, I will play Agricola. What I want to do in here is have the sense of adventure, of discovery, almost like reading a novel, but I'm making it up as I go with characters that I'm actually more invested in. So, roles. Heavy, light does exist. Other sort of axis we can think about is scripted versus sandboxed. So some RPGs will provide you with a big wide world, and you're free to sort of explore it, make it up as you go. For example, here we'll take Colossal, that's a good example. So Colossal provides you with a bit of a world, right? Which is basically the whole world is a castle, and it's made up of different rooms, and different rooms can have different biomes. So you have like jungle rooms and ocean rooms and forest rooms. And as you explore different rooms, and different rooms will offer you different types of adventure, that sort of thing. So it is basically as wide as your imagination goes. You don't have to follow a certain path. It is absolutely not guided. Like you just sort of go where you want to go with it. Versus something like, we use Fablelands, which is an example of a choose your own adventure book. So a choose your own adventure book, if you're not familiar with the genre, you create a character, usually have a little character sheet with some stats, and then you start up in a city, and then you're given some chores, and once you made a choice, or you roll, depending, if you succeed or not, you roll to a different paragraph and find out the outcome. And so in a way, it's sort of like a bit of a decision tree, but you don't have full control over your character. You're usually given a choice. So you're faced with a wall. Do you want to climb it or turn around? And you're like, well, what if I want to like make it explode with a fireball? Well, there's no option for that. So choose your own adventure books are not my scene, again, because they're not sandboxy enough for me. They don't let me build my own story. They're just sort of giving me a itty bitty bit of control over somebody else's story. And at that point, I would rather read a novel, like I don't understand what that's there. And again, because the dice rolling doesn't fill me with excitement or joy, it's not really my thing. But again, if you want to try it though, Fablelands, very well rated in the genre. It's a whole series. So the world expands too as you buy more books. You don't have to start with the first one. I did because of me and, you know, like just concept. I just couldn't have a series that started with 2. But something to consider. So, rules easy, not, world, sandboxy or scripted. And then the other thing is how you play, which could be in the extreme of journaling versus, I don't know, I'll say dice rolling. So for example, let's look at Scarlet Heroes. Scarlet Heroes is, well, what I think of as what would have happened if Dungeon Dragon was made for solo play. So one would create a character, they have the standard stats, strength, dexterity, charisma, wisdom, intelligence, missing 1 constitution. And then, you know, you get your attack bonus and you have to roll a dice to see if you hit your target. And if you rolled enough to get past its armor class, then you roll again for damage. And you usually end up exploring dungeon and finding all sorts of really cool treasure loots. And there's all kinds of different treasure table, and then you can roll to have like really good ones or magical ones. And there's a whole table full of spells of different levels. So if your character levels up, you gain more complicated spells that do different things. So that's one extreme. I mean, it goes deeper than that too, but that's the one extreme that I actually own and therefore can show you. I'll probably end up doing a video on Scarlet Heroes. It's a well-made system for solo play, I have to say. I mean, I have my problems with it with regards to like, I don't know, I feel like even the caterpillar monster, because she's female, could have an OnlyFans account. But anyway, whatever, my own things. But Scarlet Heroes exist. It's one extreme. The other extreme to that, which is less about dice rolling, stats, and math, and again, more about stories, and therefore where I am happiest. Again, Castle is an example, but to pick on a different RPG, let's look at Apothecaria. So in this case, you create a character who just, in this case, you're a witch, making potions to cure different ailments. And this particular game is run by a deck of cards. So you draw a card, look at a prompt, and then you can see, okay, like what kind of ailment am I trying to cure? And the whole thing is called a journaling RPG because basically as you're playing, you're writing a journal of what your character is doing. So you're sort of writing a story. So I really like that because again, what I like about RPGs is the story. So that is basically my sphere. Solo RPG that are journaling, generally speaking. Again, not to say that I don't venture into other things, but that's what you're most likely to see me do as part of this video series. So I own, well, quite a few, that's not even all of them. I'm not very likely to cover a lot of what they call supplements. That's like, you know, maps or minis or, oh, well, actually I do have some right here, so let's look at that. Books that are basically just tables to help you come up with ideas, right? So in this case, say that you're running into an animal, but you're having a writer's block as to which one it is. You can roll on a d6 and it gives you an idea of what animal it is. So it's not a game. It is just like a, hey, do you need help coming up with an idea of what you just ran into? Or, you know, what kind of a door is it? Are there stairs? Yes or no? You know, what, oh, here. You're coming into a town. Here's a bunch of potential names. So, I mean, I do actually have to say I kind of use it for names because I'm horrible at naming things, which is why I own it. But generally speaking, I actually don't own a lot of supplements. I own Table Fables because they're small, readily available, cheap, and also, frankly, kind of cool. But, I mean, there's a lot of RPGers who will own, like, you know, minis and lots of different systems that are just meant to go over existing rule sets. I really have a thing for buying a game that is basically this big. And I mean, maybe that's also because I was a board, well, I am a board gamer, you know, and then a game is always at least a proper box. Like the idea that this is a game, like it's so small, it's so amazing. I can have 1 million of these and not fill up my shelf. So I like the concept of having a game and just playing it. Okay, to be fair, I also have a bunch of notebooks in which I write my journals, but anyway, I think I'll probably stop it there for today's video. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what I'm about. In the next few videos, I think I'll basically focus on, I don't know, maybe doing little reviews or walking you through some of these games, letting you know what I think of them, where I think their strengths or weaknesses are, as the case may be. And yeah, so I hope to catch you soon. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.